Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Inner Circle podcast where real estate meets real life, hosted by yours truly, your homegirl, Jillian. We're coming to you live on intellectualradio.com, their YouTube channel, and across my social media platforms. And don't worry, if you missed the live show today, this episode and all others will be available to stream anytime on intellectualradio.com. Again, their YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and all of my social media platforms. So each week we dive into real estate, whether you're buying, selling, flipping, or investing, sharing real life lessons and actionable insights. Today we're excited to focus on the legal side of real estate for week 2. We talked about legal and attorney issues last week as well. So we're focusing on that again this week. So having worked together on countless transactions, my guest today, Jill Daniels, is not only a top-notch real estate attorney, but also someone I trust to protect my clients' interests. This episode is all about giving you the tools to understand contracts, avoid costly mistakes, and protect your investment, whether you're a buyer, seller, or investor. And as always, we want you to be a part of the conversation. So call us live at 708-223-8953 with your questions or thoughts. Don't be shy. Your question could help another listener. So grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's get started.
I'm ready.
I wish I had the applause. We got to get the applause in the studio. So after I read
we can just clap for ourselves.
Okay, clap. So Jill Daniels, we have known each other. I think it's been maybe 4 or 5 years.
I was still going to say 4 or 5 years.
It feels like it's longer. But let everybody know who you are, your background. Just give our viewers and our guests just a little bit more about Jill Daniels.
Well, I am a real estate attorney, and I love everything real estate. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary with my firm.
Yay.
And just, I don't know, there's nothing I don't like there's nothing I don't like about real estate, I should say. You know what I mean? There's things that, are not as exciting as other things, shall I say. But I love it. I love real estate, and I can't believe it took me 40 years of my life to get here. But here I am.
I don't know that I ever asked you, did you intend to start off in real estate?
No. So we did high volume litigation.
Okay.
Took some time off with my kids, came back. I got my mediation certificate, did a lot of mediation with the courts and things like that. And my one girlfriend was like, I think you'd make a great real estate attorney. I was like, not even sure what a deed is. So I was like,
you not knowing what a deed is?
Now I know what a deed is. I mean, I got you covered.
Right.
But back in the day, I was like, I don't know that I'm equipped to do that. That's called malpractice. She's like, no, you can totally do it. So I did a lot of CLEs, had a lot of mentors and people that helped me to get to where I am here today. And I try to give that back to others, just to be a really good resource to make it the best that we can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get started. So Jill, you and I have worked together on quite a few deals over the past few years. So from your perspective, what is the biggest legal hurdle for buyers or sellers facing, that they may face during a transaction?
The legal hurdle?
Yeah, legal. We can talk about any kind of hurdle, legal, and what you've seen.
I think it's expectations. I think we as the team need to set those clear expectations. Yeah. Because if we set really good expectations, like, you know what, it's your loan might get extended, this kind of thing, then it won't be such a hurdle, because I think those hurdles come from the unknown.
And the timelines, right? Buyers, when we enter into a contract.
Right.
And we as realtors, we give people the expected timeline. So 30 days, 45 days. But we realistically, you don't know.
I think we need to put to that timeline flexibility.
Yes.
Because, there is an F word in real estate, and it's called flexibility. So that is, I think, what we need to focus on, because I think that's where the frustration comes from people.
Yeah.
Like I'm really worried that I haven't heard back from the other attorney. I'm like, we're still fine. We're within the contract times, that kind of thing. Or someone needs an extension, to not really understand how that's going to happen, that you're not going to lose the house if you need one more day to get the loan approved.
So as far as expectations, and so I'd like to explain a little bit about the process. So as being a realtor, we take, and I'll use buyers, I won't go to seller side right away, but we take buyers out to see properties, right? We find the right one, we write a contract, we make an offer, our offer gets accepted.
You make your offer on a standard contract.
On a standard contract.
So that's, I think, important.
Oh, here you go. You're gonna start going in the legal terms?
Well, I think that's important to say.
No,
you're not whipping up that
a standard contract, right.
It's a standard, well-vetted,
right.
Well understood litigated contract.
Absolutely.
So that gives you protection, which I think is really key to put in there.
Which is kind of what I want to get to. But, just as far as the process, write an offer, go under contract. That's when the attorney kind of comes into play. We try to introduce our attorneys to clients ahead of time so they know who we recommend or who they'll be working with, and try to explain why an attorney is important in the process. So one, I kind of want you to share with people why an attorney is important, and then talk about how your team, once we kind of get you guys involved, or I don't want to say transition that client over into you, we're kind of bringing you into the process. How does your team work with a client?
So, I have, well, let me kind of do with who my team is. I have a full staff of 5 people. So everything is task oriented because I think that contract has so many different tasks in there, contingencies as well as tasks. So, we're really equipped once we get that. I'm always available though in advance. Sometimes people need that extra assurance that, if I give my earnest money and then I have the home inspection and I don't like it and I want to get out, can you confirm with me that I can get my earnest money back? And I absolutely am always happy to be that resource to give them that assurance.
You guys, and you're kind of doubling down on what we already say. It's like, but when it comes from an attorney,
correct.
You might say the same thing.
And you might get me on the phone for 30 seconds and they're like, oh, okay, Jill said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they have to hear from the other Jill. That's correct.
That's right.
In order for it to be legit. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think there's just so many things. So once, I think what's overwhelming to people, and this is again setting expectations, is just how much happens in the first, you have to be on email.
Absolutely.
Do I mean, I would say
time is of the essence. I mean,
time is of the essence.
Yeah.
If you have to open up a new email because you're not checking email, like my children that are adultish in their 20s, they don't feel the value of email. I'm like, well, no, that's still how the world works.
Right.
So, I mean, we still have to email. So you have to be equipped and be ready to be like, okay, they sent me an addendum to sign. Let me sign that and get that back. Because all of these different things keep the party moving.
Absolutely.
Towards the closing date.
And it goes back to expectations on our part, because, they expect a lot from us because, we're working for them. It's employment basically of a client, but expectations from their attorney. And then we have to tell them, these are your expectations.
Right.
You have to read. You have to answer. I almost
feel like we need a client bill of rights. You do that in some forms.
You do.
But maybe that's something fun I add. Here's what we expect of you.
Yeah. No,
do you know what I'm saying?
But I feel like as a realtor though, that is part of my biggest expectation. This is how the process is going to work. And so I need you to be active. Well, that's not a whole different situation.
I know, right? But this is what your expectations are from, and I know you had other people on.
Absolutely.
Right, but these are your expectations. Respond back to your attorney. Don't ghost me.
Yeah. No, you have to be a part of. You have to be a part of the transaction if you want this property.
Correct. You have to be an active participant.
And then even on the seller side too, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You have to be an active participant in the purchase or sale of your home.
Right.
Even if I'm ordering your water for your sale or your payoff, I still need you to sign that payoff form.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems
absolutely.
I mean, it seems crazy, but we need you engaged.
Absolutely. And it's our responsibility to tell our clients that, right? From our end, from me working with them from the beginning. And then I know you guys send a great email. You have a team that's doing, proactive calling to clients. We're constantly following up, but just to anybody out there that's going to buy or sell, don't disappear on your realtor or your attorney, please.
Right. It's not that we're taking it personal that we're ghosting. It's just you're going, or your lender, don't of your team.
That's the biggest part, right? Of your team, of your real estate team.
It could be even your home inspector. Yeah. You don't pay them. They don't release the report. We can't get the letter off.
Right.
So there's so much. Right. Just be ready to be engaged.
Yeah.
But we try to be approachable. I always have my cell phone. Like I said, I have more than enough people in the office, and it's interesting to see. Somebody might like talking to Patrick. Somebody might be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to call Holly for everything." So whatever that case may be, we want to be the right team with you,
right,
to make it work.
So back to the standard contract. What do you feel like is probably the most misunderstood, or no? I'm gonna say with misunderstood. What do you think is like the most misunderstood part of the real estate contract?
Well, we have a new contract coming out.
Yeah, I do.
So we're going to talk about the current one that we have, because I think the new contract has, beefed up my beef with the 7.0. Mm-hmm. So it is when you buy a property as is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going in and you're going to pay. I'm going to put my offer in that this is going to be an as is because I want to get a great price. And then you go through it and you're like, you know what? I didn't know that the roof was leaking. I didn't know that all of this was happening. So I think the misunderstood part is, it's as is means as is. That doesn't mean it's as is aside from major safety concerns. So what I tell people is, if you ask for something in an as is contract, you run the risk that the seller can cancel on you unilaterally, just say, you have violated the contract and we are not moving forward with you, especially in a market. I mean, this is where you attest to that. How competitive is your offer? Like I ask the clients that when they want 4 or 5 things in the as is, you know what? Were you competing against 10 other offers? Well, you may not want to ask for this because you got a really good price. You really want this home. Or, the example I would use is if this home is next to your mom, and that's super important. Like I'm saying, you have family next door, it's going to be key for babysitting, doing that. Do you really care that, your furnace, that you might, it's past its useful life, which isn't even appropriate to ask for in the contract, but as is as is, and that I think is misunderstood.
That is a big, big struggle for us. Even on on the attorney side, I feel like we come to you guys to, once again, double down on what we're saying as is, but making buyers understand what that means when you are making that offer.
Correct.
And it's multiple offers on the table, and that they feel like is their way to get it. But I need you to understand exactly what this means for you and on the seller side. Correct. And what you may hear on the other end after you have your home inspection.
I mean, I have one yesterday. I was like, what is he talking? It was as is. It was a rock bottom price. I don't even know what this place looked like, but the price given, that it was a multi-unit for like $125. Okay. I was like, this is not a palace. I mean, I'm going to expect that this is going to need some work. The attorney was like, I know it was as is, but we have some concerns. Okay, so I went to the MLS to look at the, maybe realtor.com, I should say, to look at the pictures. And I was like, there is no way that anyone could expect any guarantees with this house. Right. There are open walls. The furnace was in pieces on the floor. I'm like, what? I'm like, have you not looked at the pictures? This is what I said to the buyer's attorney.
It's expectations. I mean, you kind of set the tone and the key for this conversation. A lot of what we experience is lack thereof or misunderstood.
Right. And I think we as a team set those expectations and those things too of, hey, it's been 24 hours and we haven't heard from the other attorney about our attorney review letter with your request for the home inspection items. And the world is not ending. I know we're going into a 3-day weekend, right? Like this, if it was Friday, we're going into a 3-day weekend, but in the world of that just stops everything. And you may not get a response, but I need to not have the agent be like, you need to call them, you need to call them. Right. We need to work together to keep the client calm and informed.
Absolutely. I want to back up just a little bit because some of my viewers and listeners are first-time home buyers or they've never bought, and they don't understand the importance of having an attorney in a transaction here in Illinois. So can you kind of speak to that?
Right. And I'm only going to speak to it in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're down in Springfield, it's going to be a whole different beast down there. But right here in the Chicagoland area, I think you need to have an attorney. I'm not just saying that because I'm an attorney and it's my job, but I think it offers you protection because I argue on the other side, as a seller, for example, if the buyer does not have an attorney, you accepted that contract. You know what? It's subject to attorney review.
We're going to get into what that means.
Right.
Some people don't know what that means at all.
So. I'm sure they don't. Right. Yeah. But I think we guide you as the attorney. I feel like I am not that I watch football very often, but the quarterback of the transaction. That's about my football terminology. Okay. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Coming out. But we are the ones that extend the deadlines, can do an addendum to the contract, can do the modifications, and to advocate for you. And additionally, we go to the office, we go to the closing at the title company office with you so that we can explain these documents. And most of the closings are smooth at the time of closing. Most of them are smooth. But then once in a while, there's an issue that comes up or something like that we need to, as an attorney, you wouldn't even know what to ask for. Do you know what I'm saying? And so like one example would come up would be like if you're buying a condo, like storage spaces and parking spaces, are they assigned by the association?
Just condo docs in general.
Right, I mean, that's my goal for this month is I'm going to beef up my condo email. Yeah. Here are some documents that would be typical that you would see in kind of a glossary of them.
Needed. Absolutely.
And to, here is a much, like this is what you need to look at, focus on, are you comfortable with the rules and regulations? I have the thing that comes up often is it's a no smoking building, but you might want to have a cigar on your balcony.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Or a cigarette on your balcony or something. Is that going to be allowed? Now, for me, I don't smoke, a cigar or a cigarette, so it wouldn't be a concern for me. So I wouldn't know that when we're going through it. But for you, that might be a deal breaker. So that's where I think good communication,
transparency,
right, with your attorney to say, hey, here's some of the questions I have. Do you know what? Could I put a washer and dryer in? Things like that. And then we can always go back to the association for clarification. But that is an important thing, the HOA. But there's so much to unpack that I don't know. I think as a buyer, there is a lot that you have responsibility to do. If you have a loan, there's a lot of let me get this document, and you want someone to be there on your side. And, maybe there's a situation where you're not comfortable talking to your agent, your real estate agent.
I don't like to think that not any of my clients are.
Well, maybe there's an attorney,
no,
right? But there might be an attorney-client privilege.
Yes.
So something like that might be like, I need to get out because of this situation.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't find out until the end. They've already talked to you, and then they're coming back to us saying,
right. I mean, not to say that you wouldn't be,
yeah,
right, but I mean, but that gives you a protection too. That I think could be a situation. Like I had one recently where she was like, I'm going to file for divorce. They're selling, but nobody could tell. She couldn't tell the agent because the agent really knew the husband. How do I go about doing this? And that would be. Where it is attorney-client privilege. So, that I think is important too.
So some of the other things that I think that I just remember getting questions about constantly, especially in the beginning of working with clients, is understanding the contract and the time that we kind of talked about it, deadlines or the time frames in it, attorney inspection review, the lending deadlines, all of that. Yeah. So let's talk about some of those, like the deadlines. And we talked about this of, being responsive and being timely on our clients and responding. These deadlines are spelled out in the contract. Not only are we reinforcing them, I know, your team and other attorneys, there should be reminding clients of these deadlines coming up. But let's just talk about a little bit about them.
Yeah. So I'm going to say there's we'll call them the contract contingencies. Yeah. So the first one is attorney review. Okay. So that is your chance to, ask for any contract modifications. I put in a handful. I don't do too many, something like the property must appraise, asking about insurance claims, things like that. Let's say there was the interest rate missing or something like that from the contract or the term, like filling in that paragraph, just tidying it up, initial list. So that would be, the first 5 days. So usually, realistically, buyer or seller, it's probably going out the afternoon. Up until 6 o'clock on the 5th day,
right?
Just because you're had inspections, maybe you have a sewer line, you have something like that, that scope that's going to take a little bit more time. So we are really pretty much, button up against that deadline, if that makes sense. And then we have the insurance contingency for homeowners insurance as well as flood insurance to verify that. So that is something else I remind the clients just to check, especially with insurance rates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They are going up.
They are. Yep.
Like looking to deny claims.
Absolutely. Especially in recent wake of things.
Right. It's not great.
Yeah.
I think my premium this year went up like 15%.
Wow.
Which is a significant. So you want to make sure that, you want to make sure your home's insurable, that there's not excessive claims on the home, that kind of thing that you're concerned about for your insurance rate. The other one would be the mortgage contingency. Okay. Securing financing.
That's a big one.
That is a big one. So there's two within that. One, you have to apply for your loan and pay any and all fees in the first 10 business days. So that is a contingency that we ask for an extension on that, because maybe you don't want to order your appraisal till we know, what, you asked for a lot in that home inspection because that house had some hidden things.
Yeah.
And so you may want, a little bit more of an extension on that, and then getting what we call it, a clear to close. That's the good news. That's what we want to hear.
Those are the 3 words, clear, that we all want to hear, right?
Right. Yeah. CTC, clear to close, baby.
Yeah.
So we want to hear that. And so we might need an extension for that, or an extension to review your HOA docs through paragraph 15, those kind of things. So, there are different extensions there. And so we do log that. I think when we set up a file, whether it be our internal tasks or, especially I know we're talking about a buy, you're looking at, we might have 25 tasks, because it might be a 2-day reminder. Hey, to the lender, what are you needing to make sure the clear to close? Oh, you know what? I haven't got an updated title. Oh, let me get on that and work with the seller's attorney. So we really try to be proactive about that.
Got it. So what are some, I guess I've seen situations where clients
We've
were
seen a lot of situations.
where clients were completely caught off guard by some kind of hidden clause, right? Or something that I'll look, I take accountability. It might be something that I missed in an offer, or just something that might be have snuck up in there by an attorney or by the agent on the other side in the contract. So are there any sneaky clauses or things that, even an example that you've seen where something was in a contract and somebody missed it?
Well, I would say maybe the post-closing possession. So for those of you that don't know what that is can be really a great, negotiation tool, because it allows your seller to stay in the home following closing. So it's not a lease, but it's rather they put X amount of money into an escrow. So usually it's 2% of the purchase price. So if it's $100,000, it would put $2,000 into an escrow account, and then we would do a daily per diem. But sometimes that's already filled out with, we're doing 2% in the purchase price, and then it's a 0 per diem. So that can be shocking. And I've seen that because that's part of your offer. So I'm not going to go back and negotiate that, right? This is what your offer is. But I am trying to be better about letting you know you're paying your mortgage for, let's say it's 60 days, for 2 months, and the seller's not reimbursing you. But maybe that was how you got the house.
Mm-hmm.
How
your offer asking that question, right?
Yeah. How your offer was accepted. So I think that's something that can be a little bit like, when are we getting that money? A little bit misunderstood for that. I mean, what would you say? I mean, what have you seen that's surprising?
No, that is
post-closing.
Post-closing is a big one. I think it's something that's missed. We overlook it a lot.
And to really understand
it. And sometimes, and to understand it, right? Even as realtors, it took me a while to understand, what does that mean? What is a lease back?
Right.
So, and thankfully for people like you, attorneys or your managing broker, that can sit down with you and explain what exactly that means. What's the benefit? What are the disadvantages?
Right, because it's not without risk, because you're not living in the home.
Right.
There could be extra costs, those kind of things. Even if we do an agreement, which I have like a good 2-page agreement, single space, because I'm a lawyer. But I really feel strongly that is for protection. I mean, and I can always give a story about mine. We were rehabbing our house. This was like 9 years ago, doing post-closing possession because they wanted to sell and then move. And I said, that's fine. They were having it for 3 days. Well, he did not move his car out of the garage because it had no wheels. I don't remember what kind of car it was, but something from England, had no wheels, was up on blocks. He thought he had sold it. The person did not want it. So this car's there and there and there, but it's not like for a car. You can't call junk remedy.
Right.
Hey, come tow this away because you need a title for it. Yeah. So that became very tricky, where I was like, we're getting kitchen cabinets delivered. It's been like 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You were supposed
to
be
flexible and understandable, but
right. I was like,
it's not your responsibility.
No, I'm like, we don't live here, so it's not a real big deal to me. A couple days goes by, you know what I mean? But I was like, we need it for storage. Like, we needed that to stage stuff. So that he ended up having to get it towed away to a junkyard that he had to wait to do it. But I was like, this is crazy town.
Yeah, but there are things like situations like that come up, and you don't think about them until you're in them.
Right. Or it could be, you have the whole, this is where I just think I don't love post-closing possession. I think it's a necessary beast.
Yeah.
But you could have a whole room. I don't know what's underneath my sofa in the corner. Like, we have a big, huge corner, sectional. I don't know. I'm not moving that every day.
Right.
I don't know. There could be damage to the floor. As a seller, I didn't misrepresent anything.
Yeah.
But then when my buyer came, if I moved that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did not realize there was damage to the floor or the baseboard or whatever that might be, then that becomes an issue.
Got it.
Where it's much better, I think, as a buyer, to see the empty home going into it. But that's where we have the protection going in. But if you can get your house, I did it to get my house, so it's not all bad.
Absolutely, it's a compromise, and that's and you're
remember the effort.
Flexibility. You're right. It is that. It is being flexible, even to know in the long run it's going to give me what I want. So absolutely. So can you explain what happens when a buyer or seller wants to back out during the attorney review period?
So if it's during the attorney review period, buyer or seller, I just send a disapproval letter, but we can't just do it for purchase price. So that would happen more. So in the seller situation where maybe they got a new offer,
Right.
okay, with was 10,000 higher, that kind of thing, which I'm going to say, having seen many of those, that's not always the better offer.
Exactly.
That's, you know what I mean? The grass is not necessarily greener on the other side. I can tell you many times where people have gone with another offer and then gone back to the other offer.
Absolutely.
Because it does. But
does.
I, you know, I think I like went on a tangent and then I was like, I got to circle back to make sure I got it right.
So what happens when,
attorney review
and they want to back out, they want to terminate.
Right. So you have tendered your contract, most likely your earnest money, which is, a nominal amount compared to your purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
That does go towards your funds to bring to closing. So I would just send a letter disapproving it. But it is really important that both parties have to sign off on the release of the earnest money.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just a unilateral release.
Mm-hmm.
So if whoever's holding it, the title company, the brokerage, the attorney, both parties have to sign off. 99% of the time they do. There are there can be a circumstance here and there that they do not.
Absolutely.
But you have to, like to say, there's nothing wrong with the home, or it's more like it's the buyer that canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, the seller that canceled on the buyer.
Because repairs weren't going to be made, or
no, this is in the first 5 days.
Oh, in the first,
So
So
the seller's just saying,
Absolutely.
I don't like this contract anymore. So if I was representing the seller there, I would say something, even though I wouldn't put it in the letter,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a clear understanding if I got called out why we were canceling it.
Right.
The closing date no longer worked.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't love how post-closing possession understood. They didn't understand the different types of loans.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you've gone over that with
Yeah.
the different types of loans. Like maybe it was an FHA loan and they did not want to make repairs because the property was as is, things like that. Because I would want, but sometimes I've had buyers push back. I think they just did it because they got a higher price.
Mm-hmm.
So that do know that there is a chance that they may not sign off. They are supposed to sign off.
Right.
You know what I mean? They are, I believe, required to, but it always resolves itself. It might be 30 days.
Yeah.
A lot of times people need to sit on it.
And I would say 90% of the time they're going to sign off. It's that 10%.
I don't want to worry.
Right. No, I don't. The odds
it's
be
rare.
Yeah, not. But yeah, no, it's rare. But there are cases out there where you get a stubborn seller or buyer. Either one.
Or an attorney that's very litigious.
Absolutely, and they want to come for your jugular with everything.
Right. Instead of because I always tell my clients, like, you know what, if they don't want to sell to you, or you don't want to, they don't want to buy, you know what, there's going to be another out along the way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So let them out and cut your losses and get this house relisted.
Right.
That's my philosophy.
Yeah. Well, that's the first 5 days, right? So let's say I've got a buyer that has their home inspection and there's a list of repairs, as often
it often goes,
right? And this buyer has asked the seller to repair X, Y, and Z. Seller comes back and says, no, we're not repairing the majority of these. We'll repair this one thing, but
right. Agree, disagree.
There's a deal breaker in there, right? Buyer wants to get out of the contract. What's the process?
So after 10 business days, okay, and remember, business days are Monday through Friday with a non-holiday, and the hours.
There's a time. I was just going to say there's a time on that, right? Okay.
8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes.
are considered business. I believe it's 8 a.m. Now I'm like, my God, that's a trivia.
It's 8 a.m. and I normally do it to 5 p.m. If it's anything after 5 p.m.
6 p.m. is in the contract.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
So, but I think it starts at 8 p.m. 8 a.m. rather. So I would say at 6:01 on business day 10, we can send a cancellation letter that says we could not come to any agreement during this. So hereby I declare this contract null and void and ask for the return of earnest money.
And what happens if not all parties agree to sign that cancel?
You're sitting there.
I had to ask that because we get asked that all the time. What if the seller doesn't want to sign so I can get my earnest money back?
They may not want to sign.
They may not want to sign, but so that's kind of the misconception I wanted to throw in there because as I heard you talking, but what happens if neither party sign? What happens to that earnest money? I know the answer, but I want you right.
It sits there.
And
depending upon who's holding it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm as the attorney holding it, which I'm trying to have the title company hold it more often. But if I am attorney, I have 5 years it sits in my account before I can turn it over.
Absolutely.
But
buyers or either I feel like both sides. They're uninformed as to what happens with that earnest money. If the buyer defaults, the seller automatically thinks they're walking away with that money and I can go do whatever I want to do with it. It does not work like that.
It is. There is a form. I use that form for the earnest money, for the return of earnest money. I also use that form for like circling back to the post-closing possession. I don't release any, whether it be a tax proration, whatever that is, I don't release any funds from my trust account without both parties signing off. You know what I mean? Like, and it's, if we have to wait for it, we have to wait for it, because I don't want to release it and then that they say, you gave me 400, it should have been 1,400.
Right.
I have everybody release it. So it is, I think that's where, especially when the transaction's over with, that it's really key to have, for you as an agent, which I know you do, have great communication with the other side to say, hey, I know your attorney stopped responding because we have no active transaction anymore, but we need to work together to get this signed.
Yeah. So you mentioned title. I wanted to talk a little bit about that process. Title, what does that mean for people in the closing process, or when a title company runs title to guarantee, there's no liens and stuff like that? I want to get into that because that's been a deal killer, especially for investors or just buyers in general. When you've got liens, mechanics liens, or just general liens that come up, even tax liens.
Well, and it can come up on a buyer's side. So title, first of all, is the escrow agent. So you close with the title company as the escrow agent, meaning they take all the money in and disperse once all the parties have approved, including buyer, seller, and lender, if there is a lender. And title insurance is routinely in the contract, unless it's been modified with a rider or something like that, is a seller's cost to provide an owner's policy. So that means that you own, as the buyer, the property free and clear during your entire ownership, free and clear of anything that happened prior to you purchasing.
Anything or anyone, because, it may be a long lost family member that comes out of the works and says, hey, I've got ownership in this property.
Like a probate, like let's say you brought it from someone that was deceased. So it would, that's why as the seller's attorney, you go through an affidavit process, a court process if someone's deceased. So let's say, Susie comes to the buy, and said, this is my property because there was a deed back in 2010 before the person you even bought it from owned it. You are insured for that, to be made whole, to litigate it, that kind of thing. So that is title insurance there. It is not it's not something that would happen after the fact. Okay. It also protects you against judgments, because I think this is a little known fact where you have a personal judgment against you, as the seller, they can file against the property for there, but also they can pull if you owe the federal government and you have a lien there, they're not going to let you take all of your profits from your property. Right. Think about that. And not pay the government back. They've set up checks and balances there that they're going to be paid first. Yeah. So sometimes that can be a surprise for a seller.
First, right? Yeah. So the tax lien is the first on the.
Well, that would be a real estate tax.
A real estate tax, right?
Right. Okay. I'm talking like a federal tax lien, state lien, something like that.
I meant property taxes. Normally,
correct.
That's first lien, right?
And they're going to be gone.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
So that's those are things just in general, things that can come up on the title as a seller that you have assurance as a buyer that it's going to be clear. Would be mechanics liens on the property, mortgages, ownership rights, any liens, those kind of things like that. And then as a buyer, if you have a judgment, tell your lender. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's where maybe you don't want your agent to know or your attorney to know, but it's going to come out. We're all going to know.
And it's going to stop.
And we don't care.
It's going to stop the deal.
Right. I would rather know in the beginning, how can we get around it? Because let's say you had paid it off, but they didn't file the release to it. Wonky things happen. You know what I'm saying? I had a tax lien filed on my house because I was paying my taxes, but I was paying them under my social and not my husband's social security number.
Okay.
And apparently it goes by the man. So even though he wasn't writing it, Peter.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, no, I paid like 30,000 of this. It's been like a year. Like I have paid.
Yeah, but those things happen.
Because
you don't know.
I had no idea.
Paying it like that,
so my accountant had to get involved and do this.
Yeah,
we had to get this all rectified. But it didn't happen overnight. Like if that had happened and I was going to buy a home and I didn't even know that I had this lien and it came up, it was not a quick. It was a several week resolution. So that's where I'm going to say come clean. And I always tell people it happened to me. It could be erroneous. Yeah. I mean, mine was erroneous.
Yeah,
but I was like. It was filed on my property and then a release was filed.
Yeah. And we mentioned deeds and we were talking about liens, and it just automatically made me think of my investor clients. And there's a lot of deals out here that it's quick claim, right?
My resolution, I have a lot of things I'm aiming for in 2025, right?
Okay.
But I will tell you what we've changed to our workflow is when we prepare a quick claim deed, there is a release that will be done.
Okay.
Because you need to
back up. Let's explain what it is.
Okay.
I want to know your opinion of what you think about it.
Right.
Okay.
So here's the thing. So
what it is. What is a
quick claim deed means you're gonna, like, let's say you're gonna send your house to me, okay, and you just transfer it over.
Right.
Okay. I'm taking it subject to, well, I didn't know you had a mortgage.
Right.
Okay. I didn't know that you had a lien filed against your property. And I have one recently where maybe you're not even the owner.
Oh, that happens a lot. In the investment world, it happens a lot here. I don't know.
Right, because I can quick claim any property.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I love that house over there. I'm going to quick claim that to my husband. But okay, I can
file. You have no ownership in it.
I have no ownership. Right. I can file that deed with the county. They don't care because they're not doing a title search going back with, ownership. And then you're thinking, I got a deed that says this house is mine, but I was never on the deed. Jill was never owned this house. You know what I mean? Rhonda owned the house. Mm-hmm. Where did I get Rhonda? That was a dark horse name.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Right. No, yeah.
Right. So, you know what I mean? So like that is, you know what I mean? Like you've got, this was owned by, somebody entirely different. Well, they're still owning that property, but I think I own this property and I paid the back taxes. So I wanted to get this all current because I relied upon you, but that was an uninsured deed. So you want an insured deed. Mm-hmm. And I had one like closed yesterday where it was a family, dad to son. And she was like, we could do a quick claim deed. And I said, you know what? It's going to be cleaner for your son and best that he just owns it outright.
Right.
You know what I mean? He doesn't have to clear. It was held in a trust. He doesn't have to go back. Because if you have some of these investors, they could be 3-4 quick claim deeds down, but then we have a quick claim deed back where the, husband was on it, married. Okay, it didn't say not a homestead property, meaning his wife or spouse did not have a right to the property. And now we need to make sure for that wife that he was married to, that she is not going to claim a stake in that property.
The newer one, the second wife, or
any of the wives. I don't know.
The
past ones, the new ones. I don't know.
But that's so common. Though.
We could have a podcast
on that, right? That is so common. You see that as you're looking at the title. You do. You see that.
Mm-hmm. We've had some instances where I'm like,
absolutely.
More than I can even, and
I've had some where people passed away, but it was the person that you got the deed from. We had a deal that was like that a few years ago.
I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah.
It was very
stressful. Right. It can be. It's stressful. So that's why these things are important. And you guys start pulling title. You have the title company pull it
I can still pull it, right? I do. As a seller,
I
have it.
Right.
I do it like, hopefully I have it back by attorney review.
Yeah.
But we pull it the same day we get the contract in. But I will tell you, there's stuff that comes up and I'm like, who is Susie? Mm-hmm. And they're like, I don't know who Susie is.
Yeah.
I was like, no, there was like a deed and now we got to go back. Or I have had two in the past couple months where the seller that has signed the listing agreement, has signed the contract, does not own this property. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, my mom said I owned it. But no, you don't own it. Maybe it was in her will. She's now gone. You have been living here for a couple of years. Do you know what I'm saying? She hasn't even quit claimed it to you just because you don't know it. You just need to always check that.
Right.
So, but just be thoughtful of ever getting a quit claim deed. You're an investor out there, anything like that, getting a quit claim deed, investing money, thinking you're going to sell it. There could be issues. That's where you need to consult an attorney. That's right. Jill Daniels here.
Absolutely. Talk to your attorney. Well, you mentioned some other keywords and things that we get asked all the time: trust and wills, and how do those work in transactions, purchasing real estate or selling real estate?
POAs. Yes. I think I'm going to say power of attorneys. Power of attorneys, yep. Right? So a will is not going to because the ownership would still be would be for non-titled property. Like when I die, I'm giving you this ring. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? Or I'm getting, something like that doesn't have a title to it. But like a home, the best way to hold it is with a trust. Okay. So that would mean that you have the trust is the owner. So let's say, your mom puts the property in a trust. Okay. She loses capacity. The doctor signs a note, which is very common in a nursing home. They have a standard form. I just got one in yesterday. It was literally a fill in the blank form. You know what? This is my patient. They do not have capacity. You know what I mean? On this date. Do you know what I'm saying? Here's their diagnosis. Well, that would be fine then to say she was the trustee. Now we're going to go to the successor trustee. So that would be where that gives decisions, and lays that out. So you could, in the event that someone was incapacitated or didn't have the ability to make those decisions to do that. So the trust is the owner there. So it's in this, and like you can put your investment accounts in it, you can put your bank accounts in it, those kind of things. It's a different classification of money. And then let's say I owned my home, didn't have it in a trust, and I died. How are my kids going to sell my home? I don't know. I don't even have Mike Peter in this. So how are my kids going to sell my home? Well, they're not equipped to do anything right now because they would have to get legal advice. They couldn't be doing this without it. I would just say, go to an attorney, let them kind of look it out. They could go to probate and get a letters of office, the court to say, here's the executor of the estate, who's going to do it. Or, which we see a lot in real estate, because it might just be one thing, because you're holding a lot of your accounts jointly, but maybe your house you're not. We do that with an affidavit of heirship, and that as an attorney, we can prepare that to show that all the heirs have signed off on this, those kind of things, to make sure that we're done there. So there's an additional title charge to that, but within the first 2 years, but it's a really good way to do it without having to go to court. So that's where we as the attorneys have the resources. The average person would not know even where to begin.
And your office does wills and trusts, correct?
We do.
Yep.
And here's the most important thing I'm going to say. If you don't have a will and a trust, because that is overwhelming, I can appreciate that. This time a year ago, we were redoing ours, and every Saturday, my husband and I are both lawyers. We're like, we should work on that. I'm like, you know what? Let's go out to lunch.
You can find any other excuse.
Right. We did not. And I was like, it's a terribly cold day. We are not doing anything but doing this today and getting this done.
Right.
But if you don't have that, there's also power of attorney. That's for healthcare. And then there's one for financial. So it's a statutory form. You email me, get my contact information. I'll send you the statutory form. Have a power of attorney done. Everybody should have one. It's got to be witnessed and notarized. But that could give you in a situation where we're saying, husband and wife on the home. Husband, has dementia, is in a nursing home, does not have legal capacity to sign. If there is a POA and a letter from the doctor, the agent, let's presume it's the wife, could sign on behalf of the husband. But if there is no POA, which a lot of people don't have that until it's too late, like maybe I need to get one, then we need to look at guardianship. And guardianship would be one of the last resorts that you would want to do, because although it would allow you to sell a home, because you might not be able to wait till they pass, you might need the money, something like that. So we would need to go to the court. The court would have somebody, a guardian ad litem, look at it, say, here's who we're going to appoint as the, guardian for the guardianship. And it's then a yearly reconciliation with the court, of the funds being sent from there. And so you lose that control over it. But there's always a way. Just reach out to the attorney. I have a thing in my, I'm going to tell you, with my kids, we have it all in the safety deposit box. I'm like, just call a lawyer. There's enough money. Let somebody else take care of this for you.
But they know where it is. They know.
Absolutely.
They know where it is. You guys have kind of talked about it. But
but the average person can't do it.
Right.
Even though we're a lawyer and we've set it all up, they still are going to need someone to help them through it.
To guide them through it.
Right. To do that.
Let's go back to property taxes briefly, because that's a big thing here in the city of Chicago and anywhere, right? Property taxes. Anyway,
it's unspeakable.
It's
a big cost.
I know this is the beginning of the year, and you normally will communicate with your past clients or clients that have bought within the last year, right?
We track. So there's a couple things. Right. So we track two different things. We track, let's say you bought a home from your first time home buyer. This home did not have any exemptions on it. There's so many exemptions you can get. So you can get a homeowner's exemption if it's your primary residence. You can get, a senior exemption, a senior freeze if you're above 65. You could also get a disability exemption if you're a disabled vet, and then just a regular disability exemption, which I'm going to tell you, that's been a hot little thing.
It has been lately.
Because my husband is considered disabled and to get one. And I read that form over and I was like, well, my hairdresser has lupus. I think she can get one. Do you know what I'm saying?
But it's a lot of people that don't know.
They don't know it. And many disabilities, are silent.
Right.
So you may not know that someone has, that you would qualify for it. So that's something I think, I just kind of, if we're talking at the closing, chat about it, I don't know. We just assume it's always a disabled veteran exemption. We hardly ever see a disability exemption. So there's ways then to do that. So I track it if there are no exemptions, for my buyer to say, hey, remember to apply for your homeowner's exemption. Here's a link to do it. That's something you can easily do. The other thing I would track is we prorate taxes in arrears. So 24 will be paid in 25, 25, and 26. So in Cook County, this is only Cook County because we could have
just disclosure.
Right. So in Cook County, there are 2 tax bills. The first one that comes out, it's already out, hasn't been mailed to you yet, but you can pull it up online, is 55% of the prior year's tax bill. Okay. And then your exemptions, your new assessed value, everything like that comes on the second installment. So that usually comes out July-ish, August, there were years before they came out in December. So just have some flexibility with that. But that would be where your exemptions are. So let's say you bought a home from a senior who had a homeowner's exemption, a senior freeze, and a senior, exemption. So so there were 3 different things on there. We would track that to make sure that all those exemptions stayed on, because that may have saved at the time of closing $4,000. And they always go at the first of the month. So I'm going to say, as an agent, when you're looking at this and you see like they have senior exemptions on it, why would you close on December 31st? Right. Why wouldn't you close on January 2nd? Yeah. Because the exemption stays for the whole year. Right. And that could save you $5,000-$6,000. Yeah. That's something to look at too.
Not enough agents know that.
I know, but so those exemptions stay as the first of the year. That's not like they fall off. The depending upon your disabled veteran exemption, that's a one-off from there. But yes, that would be something to consider for that. Yeah. But it's really confusing, I feel. And then that's a confusing topic, but always happy to dig that deeper.
But it's a hot topic,
And rates are they're going up.
Absolutely.
And so my firm also does tax appeals.
Yes.
So that has been pretty key in doing that with to sell. So you're asking the bank to forgive some of that. Foreclosures, we can sell the property. Don't be afraid to call.
Absolutely.
There could be, your home could be worth $300,000 and you only owe $125 and you're behind on that and they move to foreclose. So even with fees and stuff like that, you're looking at, you could still be maybe owing, if, a couple months of fees and back stuff, maybe you owe $160. You're still netting some money. So don't let it go too long. Work with your professionals about that.
Now, even with tax sales, you just said something that made me think about this. If it's a tax sale, but there's still equity in my home, and let's say they can still sell it. I still make money. I can still make money off of it after the taxes are paid, right?
Right, because we do a redemption of that for the taxes.
Okay.
So, and you have in Cook County, you have several years.
Absolutely.
It is not like it's going to the tax sale. You pay some interest on it.
Oh, for sure. But
that doesn't mean you can't sell it.
Absolutely. And we get asked that a lot because I work with a lot of investors. So people are calling me, asking me about tax sales and how does it work, redemptions.
Right. We can order those.
Yes.
So really, it just all goes into it. And so if and I think we had a short sale that I was working on that was an estate, and nobody was cooperative because they didn't care. But so the question is, why would you short sale if someone's deceased, right? And you're not living in this home or anything? Well, there was other money in the estate. So we needed to get rid of this home so that this didn't become a liability for the other assets.
Right. Interesting. That's interesting. So what is the best piece of legal advice you'd give for a first-time home buyer?
To do it.
Okay.
We can protect you. We can answer those questions. I don't think you're going to regret. You know what I mean? You are protected. There's always, no home's going to be perfect. Even a new construction. I think, people go into new constructions. I just had somebody give me a punch list. They did a home inspection on their new construction. It's pretty much done, 80%, maybe 90% done. Yeah. They came back with 12 items. Yeah. So I just think that's home ownership. But just to do it and have a team around you that listens to you, that's proactive and knowledgeable. Like us.
Absolutely. We are the Jill and Jill team,
Right.
so that's right.
We've got you covered.
But on the seller side, so what piece of advice would you give on the seller side? Because it's a different
To
piece.
disclose
Okay, got it.
on the seller side.
I would agree.
So that means if, like, as a seller, there's some disclosures that come up. If you're calling me to say, should I disclose this before you even tell me? This would be like an attorney-client privilege aspect. This is typically what I would get in that.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to tell my agent. I wasn't sure about the disclosures after I looked at them again, but I need to call you confidentially to ask this. Well, I'm going to tell you that you're going to go disclose it, because if you feel you should disclose it, you should disclose it.
We had a leak in our or we had a flood in our basement last year, and we found a crack in the foundation, but we fixed it, and I didn't know if I should tell my realtor or not.
Right. Or let's like, but from the disclosures, if you fix it and we have the reasonable belief that solved your issue, there's nothing to disclose.
Yeah, but no, that's something good, that point to be made, because that can be an issue.
But I can advise of that.
Yes.
But I'm going to say, let's say, you know what, we got some seepage in. I think it was this, but it happened last week. Well, I don't know. We haven't had another heavy rainstorm.
Right.
I mean, a year or two, I think, like in my home, right? I had a sewer backup. I wouldn't recommend it, is what I'm going to tell you, but it was terrible. It was coming in so fast. Right. It was traumatic, right? But we had a sewer backup, and we put an overhead sewer in. We did all of these things. I would not need to disclose that. We haven't had any issues since, so I would never feel a need that I needed to disclose my sewer backup. Okay. But let's say I didn't put an overhead sewer in, we just rotted the line, and it's only been 6 months. And that's been through the winter. Because think about it, you don't get a lot of floods in the winter. The ground, you know what I mean? We're getting snow if there's heavy rain, that kind of thing. I would say, you know what, maybe just say we haven't had any problems since. You know what I mean? But that's a one-off and a good conversation to have. And really, like I said, if you're asking, we're probably disclosing.
Got it. No, that's a really, really good, important advice. What about for an investor?
So you can buy. So I'm going to say, like, as a for an investor, you can, without a social security number, you can buy that property. The issue I'm going to say is, if you're a seller and you're looking and somebody's got this, do you have funds here in the U.S.?
That's a good point.
So it might, because you can't always get funds out.
Absolutely.
You might be like, I can only wire $10,000 a day. You're buying $1 million place. Well, I don't know. That's probably going to take us to July, right?
Right.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that's going to take a hot sec to get there. You can't pay in cash. So it's not like you're going to, like, Louis Vuitton and they've got the cash counter in the back. That's not what happens at the title company.
At all.
Those funds need to be wired in. Okay.
Right.
There's no cash.
50,000 or more?
Yeah. There's no cash.
And
even under 50, it's only a cashier's check. So you couldn't bring the cash to the bank, because I'd have to report you if it's, I think, 10,000 or more.
10,000 or more.
Right. Because there's no cash counter here. This is not what we're doing.
Right.
But to sell it, I just had someone sell. He did have a social security number, but he didn't file taxes. So what we here, because he hadn't filed in so long, so he would say, I don't meet that qualification. I am a foreign investor. So what we did is he sold it, and then he put the funds into a, down in Florida, it's a FIRPTA Solutions, Foreign Investor Solutions. So they held back a certain percentage of that, maybe 15%, paid taxes on that, and then released it to him. So there's always a solution. Let's just say, you have a question, we have an answer.
Right.
It might not be the most ideal answer, but we have a way to solve this.
Yeah. So let me ask, as we wrap up, what is your prediction for this year? We just started a new year. Today is the 18th. So
I think it's happened. I had one of the busiest weeks for new buyers last week that
great.
I have had, I think, in 3 to 4 years.
That is great.
I was like, did these all, like, we were all like, what did
they were all sitting around on Christmas, and then January 1st they wanted to get out and start looking at homes.
It might have been a rough holiday. Is that you?
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
My daughter, I don't know. She's looking at, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is smart to stay home a little bit longer before you get out. But I think we're getting used to the rates. It's a new year. I think people want to get on it, and I think they're seeing house prices raise.
Absolutely. So, and they know if they wait. I mean, it's not.
You're going to be paying 6.5% or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you're going to be paying it on a place that's 30,000 more.
Absolutely.
So I think it's going to be a good year.
You think so?
I mean, honestly, like, I just, we go about the week. It's busy. Yeah, and it was an exceptionally busy week this week. And then I was looking at how many letters we had due on Friday, and I was like, we had that. It was that crazy busy of a week for buyers. So I'm going to say get approved, get with, us, and you can get ready to get a house.
Absolutely. We are entering, winter traditionally is a slower market here for us in Chicago. But come February, and especially we've got tax season now, so people are calling. They're calling us realtors. They're saying, I want to get prepared to buy in March or April.
So, and you do have, and I think the key that you just said, it gets to prepared to buy.
Yes.
You are not at a table on Sunday to say, hey, I think I'm going to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And then because you have to get pre-approved. Maybe you work with a lender that, it says, let's, rescore your credit score because you get a better rate. Let's pay this off. Let's wait 10 days, 15 days, pull it again. So many different options. But I think no time like the present to start the process.
Absolutely.
And it might be where you're ready to go on a Sunday to start on a Monday.
Absolutely.
But you might need a little more time.
Yeah, but preparation, you hit the key word. And I talked about that at the very beginning, at the start of this podcast, is preparation and talking to a real estate professional.
Yes.
And
not your friends.
Not your friends and not your family, because what they did may not work for you.
Correct. Right. And they might just not have understood what happened. And tell you that too, because that happens too.
And every transaction, every buy is different. To me, there's, it's always.
Well, that was my struggle when I started. Yeah. I was like, what is I like it neat and tidy. I'm a little type A, right? Do you know what I'm saying? And I like it to always be the same. And now I'm like, I don't think I've ever had a transaction that has been the same.
No, but I've learned from them not being the same, or I've learned.
That's where we learn and we grow.
Absolutely.
And we become better.
Yes, absolutely. I've learned from the ones that are not perfect.
Like our quick claim deeds.
Our quick claim deeds.
Right. Like maybe we run a title search before I am going to list your home. You're going to move out. You're going to stage it. You're going to do all this. If you got it,
Yeah.
That's what we are here to help.
Yeah. So any final advice you want to give our viewers or listeners before we end our show?
I think you can do it. I don't think there's anyone out there that can't be a homeowner.
I love it. No,
and there are so many grants and I had
assistance programs.
Right. I had someone buy the other day, maybe the week before. She paid off. So she came to the closing with like maybe $4,000, $5,000, paid off her school loans.
Her student loans. Yeah. Tina was here a few weeks ago. Yes. She talked about those programs. Yeah.
But I'm going to say, you hear that and you're like, who's doing that? People are doing it.
Doing it. Yep.
So just talk about it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like if you have any inclination to do it, I think it's always better than renting.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Unless you think you're just going to be someplace for 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
It's always better to rent. To own rather than renting, because you can build. You're going to pay a mortgage. Is it paying?
It's an investment. Right. I mean, it is an investment into you, your future. We talk about generational wealth here, and real estate is a big key of that. So
ownership. It absolutely is. Like when you think, that gives you it controls your home prices. Mm-hmm. I couldn't afford to buy my home now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Really?
Because my home has gone up so much in value. Or maybe if I could afford it, I wouldn't want that payment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Very good point. Yeah.
It just doesn't get in there and let's start it. And there's programs that can make it affordable for you. That might not be any more than a security deposit you're putting down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Jill, where can our listeners connect with you to learn more or work with you?
So you can send me an email at jill@jilldanielslaw.com. You can text me, call me, 630-269-9203. I'm on Facebook. No, for the older ones out there, because my young kids are not on it anymore, I've been told. So
they won't be on TikTok after tomorrow either. So,
I don't think so. I don't know how they're getting a hold of me. I might not be hearing from my kids. So on Facebook, Jill Beda Daniels, BEDA, attorney, or Instagram, Jill.Beda, BEDA.Daniels. So we're here.
You guys are here. Jill, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your expertise and insights have been invaluable, especially for buyers, sellers, and investors looking to navigate the often complex world of real estate. So I know our listeners, whether they're first-time home buyers or seasoned investors, will gain so much from the knowledge you shared. I know I even learned a couple things myself today from you, and we talk all the time. So to our listeners, remember, real estate isn't just about buying or selling. It's about making informed decisions, protecting your interests, and building lasting wealth. Having the right team, including a skilled real estate attorney and realtor, is key to avoiding costly mistakes and ensuring smooth transactions. Don't forget, if you missed part of today's episode, you can catch the replay on intellectualradio.com, their YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and across my social media platforms. Thank you so much for tuning into the Inner Circle podcast, where real estate meets real life. I'm your host, your homegirl Jillian. Until next time, stay smart, stay safe, and keep working towards your real estate dreams. Thank you so
That
much.
was so good.
Oh yeah, we're still live. I'm gonna cut off, but thank you.
Oh, thank
for
you.
coming on. I appreciate it.
So did you learn something, really?
Absolutely.
How many people do you usually get to listen?